Saxon Algebra 1, Lesson 38. We're going to talk about ratio problems. These we have done in the past. If you've done Saxon in the past, Jackson, talking to you, my friend, you have had experience in doing these problems, but they were probably set up differently than the way I do them. I do something a little different than John does. So I recommend that you lean into this new method and figure it out and do it this way, because I'm going to use it for more complicated problems as we go. And these are going to get more complicated as we go. Ratio problems, remember the word ratio should always bring to mind fractions. Ratio sounds scary, but fractions we're extremely familiar with. So when we set up a ratio problem, it's always going to have fractions in it. And so before we dive into the word part of these, we're just going to practice how we solve a typical ratio problem. And that's the instructions for this problem, solve. And it's 4 over m equals 21 over 5. When we get into the word problems of these ratio problems, this is exactly what we'll do, is we'll figure out how to set it up, and we'll always get fraction equals fraction, and then we'll solve it. So John's giving us just a chance to practice. The trick to solving these is cross multiplying, or as John calls it sometimes, cross product. Product just means multiplying, so same difference. I always start here and multiply down first, so I would say, I'll do it here. 4 times 5 equals m times 21. I would write that in this order, okay? Some students get in the habit of starting down here with m times 21 and then go up here and do 4 times 5. Either way is fine. To me, it's very natural to start here and then go down. What's important is just that you multiply one pair of opposites. They're on one side of the equal sign, and then the other pair of opposites is on the other side. The other tip I'll give you is that John almost always makes the numbers cancel. So I didn't multiply this 4 times 5. I left the numbers small because look, we're going to divide by 21. And a lot of times, not this time, but a lot of times there will be some nice canceling that happens here so that we get a very cute answer. So this one didn't work out, and what I would say here is 20 over 21 equals m, right? Across the top and then the bottom. So this one didn't cancel, but 99 times out of 100, we're going to be canceling here. So that's good to know, right? Okay, I'm going to flip to the next page, and then we're going to do 2 ratio word problems, and we'll be off to the races. Example 38.2. I'm going to read you the story. Already, just sit back and relax. It's a fun little story about some barnyard animals. The ratio of pigs to goats in the barnyard was 7 to 5. If there were 91 pigs, how many goats were there? Okay, the key to organizing these problems, and again, this one's pretty easy. You could probably figure this out without much trouble, no matter how you did it, but I want to teach you this tic-tac-toe board method of organizing the numbers that's going to make your life easier. Here's what we do. We draw. One of my students used to always call this a tic-tac-toe board because it kind of looks like one. He saw it without that one and without that line. It looks like tic-tac-toe, doesn't it? So it's tic-tac-toe with edges. And what we're going to write in this one is we're going to write ratio, and then here we're going to write actual. Now, in the future, I'm going to save the wear and tear on my wrist, and I'm just going to write R and A. But for now, I wrote it out so that you'll remember what it means. It says the ratio of pigs to goats. So I'm going to write pigs here, and I'm going to write goats here. This is always ratio and actual, and then this is what these 2 rows will change based on whatever it is you're comparing. And I put them in the order that the problem states them. The ratio of pigs to goats. And now we can start filling in numbers. Oh, and by the way, in the future, I would just do that. Make it simple, right? The ratio of pigs to goats was 7 to 5. All right? That doesn't say that that's how many we have, but we're saying that's a balance between the number of pigs and the number of goats that, let's just say, the farmer maintains, right? He always makes sure that however many pigs and goats there are, that they balance 7 to 5. The actual number of pigs that we have is 91. And so we're asked to find how many goats were there. All right, so that's how we take the story and we fill it into this. Now our numbers are all organized just the way we want, and we can set this up to say 7 over 5 equals 91 over x. I just lift the numbers right out of the table and keep them in the same order, create fractions, and set them equal to each other. Now we are ready to solve, and now you can see why we practiced. We practiced exactly what we need to do here, right? Cross multiply, 7x equals, and notice what I'm going to do here, 91 times 5. I'm not going to multiply that together because I'm going to divide by 7. This cancels. We've now got x by itself. That's good news. Now we want to see if we can cancel top to bottom anything. 5 and 7 are both prime. They have nothing to do with each other. But what about 7 into 91? Do you suppose it goes? Here's what my brain does. 7 times 10 would be 70. If I subtract 70 from 91, that gives me 21. 7 times 3 is 21. So that's how I can break down that 7 times 13 equals 91. So I can cancel that and go 13. If you wanted, you could just divide it, right, like this. This is what I did in my head, right? It goes in there once. That represents 10. 7, subtract, bring down, and there it is. But I just want to illustrate for you one way that my brain that's how my brain breaks it down. There are lots of ways to break it down, but I really encourage you to practice using your brain. We call it mental math, right? Which sounds funny because I always think of Ron Weasley saying things are mental, which is not a compliment, you know? But in any case, practice fun ways to break down these numbers and get answers in your head. So now 13 times 5, x equals, this would be what, 65, right? 65 goats. Word problems, we always put a word on our answer. There it is. And I like to just do this too. Whoops, 65. You don't have to write the goats here because we can see by the table that's the actual number of goats. That's correct. The 20 over 21 was correct too. Did I smiley face it? No, I didn't. That's right. Those are right. Okay, good. All right, and now one more of these. Practice the tic-tac-toe board, please. 38.3. Here we go. In the same barnyard, the ratio of chickens to ducks was 9 to 4. And there were 108 chickens. Okay, so we set up our tic-tac-toe board just the same. Ratio, actual, chickens to ducks. Super important to keep this in the same order so you don't mess up your numbers. In the same barnyard, the ratio of chickens to ducks, oh, my book is falling. The ratio of chickens to ducks was 9 to 4. And there were 108 chickens. How many ducks were there? If you want to put D, you can put D. I always just put X. But, you know, it's your choice. Do it how you like. All right, same thing. And I just want to say this before I move on from this. We're going to make this little tic-tac-toe grid. It's going to get more complicated in the future. So that's why I want you to get used to it now, because we are going to change it as we go. All right, so I lift out these 4 symbols and create the 2 fractions. 9 over 4 equals 108 over X. Yes, and then I get 9x equals 108 times 4. I'm not going to multiply that. I'm going to divide by 9. This cancels. 9 and 4 have nothing to say to each other, right? This is 2 times 2. This is 3 times 3. Nothing's going to cancel there. But what about 108? Do you suppose 9 goes into 108? Spoilers, the answer in these problems is almost always yes. Almost always. So let's figure it out. 9 times 10 would be 90. Subtract that and we get 18, and that's 9 times 2. So that tells me that this cancels with this, and it's 12. And now I see that x equals 12 and 4 is what I have left. So that's 48, and this is ducks. And that's the right answer. And again, I like to see this so that we see the tables completed. All right, that's the end of lesson 38. We are off to the races. This is a review of what we did last year. And again, I do it differently than John, so you will not see tic-tac-toe boards in his book anywhere. I made that up. All right, I will see you for, we're going to expand on this. I said that as we go. It actually will be something that is very useful when you study chemistry. So that's one thing that's cool about the higher level, the higher levels of Saxon math is that or Saxon algebra, he ties beautifully into the calculations that you'll need for some higher level science classes, some physics and some chemistry. So he sets you up to succeed in science classes as well as math. That, you know why that is? Because John is a buddy and a pal. Take that to the bank. All right, next time I talk to you, it will be lesson 39. See you then.